saw Ben's post about Magic and immediately texted him being like, yo, I'm more than happy to teach you how to play this fucking game. I happen to love
are you talking about The Gathering?
Yeah. The greatest trading card game ever made.
Okay, so here's...
You want to know why it's called The Gathering? I actually know why it's called The Gathering.
We'll get into that in a second, but I want to say that as a non-Magic user...
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. It's really funny because Wizards jokes. Wizards of the Coast jokes, I mean.
Since I neither play Magic nor am a Wizard of the Coast employee, does it make me a super muggle of the coast? I don't know.
Fuck it, I don't care.
But the thing that I get hung up on is that everyone always is like, oh, you play Magic? It's like, Magic is the most generic name ever.
Yeah.
So I always go out of my way to be like, oh, The Gathering?
So, quick side note before we actually begin the episode, because I kind of want me ranting about this on recording, and also it's fascinating. So, back in the day, back in 93, 94, when Garfield made Magic the Gathering, the thought process was that no one would... Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the fucking table. It's
fine. I'm more worried about the sound of the glasses going like...
Ooh, that's actually a good point. Let me get a legal pad here for this work.
There we go.
Do you need something to settle on?
No,
or do you just
I've got my sketchbook.
Okay. So the reason it's called The Gathering is because back in the day when Garfield made it, back in 93, people were very worried about how a trading card game would go because no successful trading card games had really existed before Magic.
Oh, how times have changed.
Magic is like the originator. And that, I mean, out of that, the progeny kind of spawned with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Kaijudo and like Pokemon and all the crazy bullshit trading card games that we have nowadays. But like Magic was the originator of all of that. And Wizards of the Coast was super scared at the time that when they made the product, no one would want to play with the extra sets. So the worry was, oh, we're going to make Arabian Nights, and no one's going to want to play with Arabian Nights and the original. They thought of it like a Dominion thing. But Dominion didn't exist at this point, but you know what I mean as far as context. They wanted to label the cards, that way people could pick and choose the expansion sets they wanted to play with, because no one knew that Magic was going to take off the way that it did, or that we were going to have the tournament styles that we do now and all of that crazy nonsense. So the thought was, what if we made the backs different, and what if we made the names permanently different? So Magic the Gathering was actually just going to be the original, what are now known to players as Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and Revised.
And then it seems like since when they launched and when it became big, they decided, you know what, let's just stick with this.
It even still says Deckmaster on the back of the card, because the Deckmaster games were going to be this series of games that Wizards of the Coast made that were going to be Deckmaster, each one themed around different shit. And they made exactly 3 Deckmaster games, and the thought was they were going to make fucking 12, and Deckmaster is now just permanently etched on the back of every Magic the Gathering card. I have to imagine there's a really regretful Wizards employee who's like involved with putting that in the new info for the next card set. Just like there's some like very poor, very frustrated image maker for the back of every single, not every single, but for the back of the next set of Magic, just like copy pasting that onto a fucking like Photoshop image, just being like, God fucking damn it.
So what you're telling me is that in every booster pack I get of Magic the Gathering cards, I get a bunch of vestigial bonuses.
Oh yeah, like the fact that the entire back of the card was meant for exactly one set, and then has since steamrolled into every single one of, I think, 90 sets. Like, it has been there. Oh, well, here's the other funny thing, is that Arabian Nights was actually supposed to have a pink fucking background. The back of the card was supposed to be bright goddamn pink and say Magic Arabian Nights. And this is really funny. A Wizards employee talked everybody out of this in a conference call in like 94 when they had already sent it to print, just being like, this is fucking stupid. Everybody stop. And he managed to talk Garfield out of it. And I think he's an R&D. He's like an R&D vet. I've forgotten his name, but he literally claims it as his greatest contribution to the history of Magic. He's like, I've designed sets. I've made some of the best cards ever. I don't care. That is the one achievement that I will claim till my dying day as the best thing I ever did for this game.
The best thing he ever did was make it so that they never changed their design whatsoever.
And also that he never ruined the card game for everybody.
You know, that being said, since they were already at printing, that means somewhere there must be someone who owns a sheet of these
Of
pink
the
back
print
cards.
back cards.
Yeah.
I think they called it right before Cardamonde printed out the actual stuff, because then they put so on Magic cards there's an expansion symbol which is in the mid right corner of every card that
Right.
shows what set it's from. So I think they stopped it before Cardamonde actually started the printing thing and said, hey, instead put this tiny little scimitar in the right hand center side of every single Arabian Nights card. That way everybody just knows upon looking at it, oh fuck, this is an Arabian Nights card.
Right. Yes.
I think it saved the entire game of Magic the Gathering.
Maybe. Okay.
All right. Let's go into the actual
All
show.
right,
I
let's
just
do
wanted
the-
to rant about
No.
that on mic.
No, I love that. Let's do the episode now.
All right.
Ready?
3, 2.
Hi, I'm John,
I'm Andrew.
and this is Agree to Disagree. It's been a while, man.
It has been a bit. I mean,
I think it's only been like 1 week. But
so here's the
feels like
thing.
a lot longer.
Here's the thing. On YouTube, on the lying YouTube schedule, it has been exactly, I think, 2 weeks since the last Agree to Disagree was made.
that lying ass schedule.
In actuality, I think it's probably been 3 weeks to a month since we've recorded a show.
Oh my God, really?
It's been a bit, man. It's really surprising. I mean, I have couches now. That
Yes.
is how long it's been.
Andrew, last time I recorded here, Andrew had no couches, and now he has quite the series of couches in his apartment.
I was gonna say, I think your claim on the way in is this looks like a lived-in decent apartment.
Yes.
My God, yeah. I think we sat on the floor when we were watching WrestleMania last time.
Yes, we did.
I was not well furnished.
That
in that.
probably added to my disdain, and also, as we pointed out in the recording, I'm laying down now.
It was the John has decided to lay down. Everybody.
All right, so we are here right now to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes, we are.
Because, well, partially because, or mostly because, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is in theaters right now.
Yes, it is.
And
Have you seen it yet? Out of curiosity,
Yeah, I have not seen it.
So I took the time to see it last Saturday, and I will say, I'm not gonna give you any spoilers, but
Please don't.
it is a continuation of the really fascinating stuff from Guardians 1, and we'll get into it later in the episode, but it's the continuation of some of the coolest stuff in the Marvel Universe
Mm-hmm.
that they're doing right now.
And I am a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In fact, I have seen every single... I don't get out to the theaters a lot, but I have seen every single movie they have put out in theaters, and I've watched every single series on Netflix that they put out, with the
Okay.
exception of Iron Fist. I haven't watched that yet because it came out around the same time as MST3K did.
Yeah, that's
I really...
You really got to choose one series to dedicate yourself to,
Right.
especially when they're both that
And
long.
I'm almost done with Mystery Science Theater, and then I'm going to watch Iron Fist.
Fair.
I haven't watched any of the ABC series. Like, I haven't watched Agents of
Spoilers, you're not missing much.
S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, it depends on who you're talking to. Some people are really passionate about that.
We'll talk.
But, you know, I really like. I read comic books as a kid. The only comic book though I was really into as a child was Nightwing, and that's a DC comic franchise.
Solid choice, though. That is some obscure level nonsense.
I
There.
don't know why, but it just grabbed me when I was a kid.
I can see that.
And I followed it. I actually had a box at a comic shop, and that was the only comic I had in it.
Nice.
Just because I was so bad at getting to the shop that occasionally I had to accrue like a few months worth of...
Oh, so you just go in and grab like an entire stack of issues?
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was great. And like, I liked following Dick Grayson on his adventures in Bloodhaven.
I actually love that conceptually. The Nightwing comics always struck me as pretty sweet in that way of like, what if Robin grew up and then claimed his own city?
Yeah.
And that's actually, when you think about it for a second, that's actually really cool and exactly what would be like a great continuation of a Batman series.
Don't get me started. Like, okay, so I would love for them to do a Nightwing TV series or movie.
Warner Brothers
or
is
a
too
one-shot.
Warner Brothers is too inept. Like, you have to know this.
The thing is, the problem I have is that I don't really want Warner Brothers to do it.
Nobody wants Warner Brothers to do anything DC. Not even the people who claim that they're into the DC stuff want Warner Brothers touching that entire cinematic universe anymore.
But so we're here to talk about the flip side of that, which is the least likely person you'd imagine to make really successful Marvel superhero features
What, you mean
and
Marvel?
shows. No, Disney, actually.
I guess, come to think of it.
Like Disney, the parent company of the Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
And also involved with, like, say, like Daredevil. Let's like
Yeah, that is actually really crazy when you think about it. Well, hang on. Before we continue, I feel like you gave your background in comics. I'll try and give mine here.
Andrew, let's talk about your background in superheroes.
So between the big two, I never actually read that many comic books when I was a kid. I remember vividly reading two specific comics that actually changed the way I thought about storytelling when I was a kid. I read Death of Superman, which ruined me as a child.
Yeah, I recall that.
I remember actually being in tears over that, and that like physically destroyed me, man. And then I remember reading the Ultimate Spider-Man comic, and I remember being really into the Ultimate version of Peter Parker and being like this jumping on point, and then I never read another issue. A lot of my history with comic books has been kind of side stuff. So my friends are super into a couple of issues, a couple main characters of the big two, and when I was growing up in high school and stuff, I'd get recommendations, but then I went out and found my own thing. So I've read mostly like Dark Horse and like Vertigo stuff. So I've League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Watchmen. I love Alan Moore stuff, despite the fact that he is a very crazy man. Grendel. Oh God, just all this more obscure nonsense that I get to claim hipster cred for. But yeah, I've read some of the big two. I just never had the time to ever sit down and be like, okay, I have the time and money. I'm going to dedicate myself to this one character. I never really had that option.
So you could have cast a bit of a wide net, whereas I kept myself like, I found this thing, I like it. I'm going to focus deep on this one thing.
I guess that's kind of just like our entire philosophy on like media when it boils down to it, isn't it?
In a way, yeah, that's actually very true.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into this.
Okay, so I want to do a breakdown of the brief history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Let's go through the recap.
Because it would not be an episode of Agree to Disagree without me going through a list with numbers.
I feel like that's just tradition at this point. We're on episode like what, 15 of this?
This is and this is like episode 22 of the podcast at large.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's a milestone, right?
No, I feel pretty good about it. I looked at him like, wow, cool.
We're doing well.
All right,
doing well there, John.
So the very first Marvel Cinematic Universe film. There were Marvel films before this.
Yeah, I mean,
there were X-Men, there were Hulk movies.
There were Raimi's Spider-Man. There was, oh God, who's the guy who's in charge of the X-Men stuff? Singer's X-Men.
Yes, Bryan Singer.
We don't like to talk about the Ang Lee Hulk.
Who?
Exactly. So what was the first real?
The very first Marvel Cinematic Universe film was Iron Man.
Yeah, Iron Man 1. That was 07, right?
That was actually 08. That came out close. In May 2nd, 2008.
Oh, shit. I remember buying a ticket for that.
Now, here is the thing. So this is unprecedented anywhere else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A month later, in June, was when The Incredible Hulk came out.
Oh, wow.
1 month later.
It was a month?
That was 1 month later.
Oh,
the
God.
Edward Norton Incredible Hulk film came out 1 month after Iron Man. And one of them was really huge, and the other one not so big.
Yeah.
It was not very well received. Then that being said, that would have been the third movie in the Incredible Hulk franchise, I believe.
Third?
It was...
It was Ang Lee Hulk.
There was the Ang Lee one.
There was this.
Okay, maybe it was only the second.
Well, I mean, there was probably. Let's be serious. There was probably a movie for the TV show back when.
Right.
We'll call it third.
We're talking about modern.
Yeah.
Modern Hulk.
Regardless, it was the remake.
Edward Norton and company wanted to do a good Hulk film, and I think they did. And you're shaking your head right now.
I haven't seen it. I can't really offer an opinion. I have not seen it. I've heard it's good. I've also heard it's very forgettable.
It bombed at box office.
Okay.
People weren't interested. And then this marks the first time in the entire history, and the last time in the entire history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where there was a solid year where there was not a single other Marvel movie.
There was a year between The Incredible Hulk and Thor?
It was Incredible Hulk and then Iron Man 2.
Whoa!
Yeah, actually, it was 2 years. It was almost 2 years because the Iron Man 2 came out in May 7th, 2010. They went from 2008 to 2010 without any Marvel, any of the MCU films.
You're kidding. It really didn't feel
this
like it.
This struck me today when I was writing down this list. It's, and we'll get back to this in a second, but it's striking because 2009 is the only year that there isn't an MCU film.
That's insane. Between I just had a very large realization that between now and 2008, between here and 2010, there have been Marvel movies every single year.
It has almost been 10 years.
Oh my God.
That we've had Marvel films every year.
I am actually staring just wide-eyed into my table right now. Holy crap, that's a realization.
All right, so you got okay. I'm going to get on the list real quick here.
Okay.
I'm not even going to list the dates.
Go for it.
You got Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, Avengers. That's the end of Phase 1.
Right.
Phase 2, Iron Man 3, Thor, The Dark World, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. That's the end of Phase 2.
Correct. Okay.
Phase 3 begins with Civil War, Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and that's where we're at right now.
That just released 2 weeks ago.
Right. And following that up pretty quickly in this summer, we have Spider-Man Homecoming.
Right.
And in this winter, we have Thor Ragnarok.
November.
And then next year, we have Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then in 2019, we have Captain Marvel and a yet untitled next Avengers film. And that's the end of Phase 3. And then after that, in 2019, we still have Spider-Man 2. Like, we have the second Spider-Man Homecoming movie.
You do realize that's the third Spider-Man 2 that has ever existed, right?
It's technically worse than that, but if we're just starting with
the Raimi ones,
with
it's
the Sam
still
Raimi ones,
still
yeah.
the third Spider-Man 2, which is crazy to me.
Yes. And then after that, we still also have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is to be dated. Like,
wait, they said there's gonna be. They confirmed a volume.
They
3?
have confirmed a volume 3, and the cool thing about that is it's still going to be directed by James Gunn.
Oh my God!
Which
yes,
makes him the first ever director in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to do a full trilogy.
Admittedly, I don't think they trust anybody else with Guardians.
I mean, that's true. But that being said, you could have also had for the Iron Man movies. You could have had.
You could have had Favreau the entire time.
You could have had Favreau. For all 3 of those Iron Man films. And he didn't direct the third one. He was still in it, though, as Iron Man's bodyguard.
Of course he was.
Like, Jon Favreau reprised his role as the old bodyguard.
Wow. All right.
So he was in all 3, but he didn't direct all 3.
That's great. All right. So after Guardians 3, I know there's an Inhumans, or did that get canned?
Let's talk about Inhumans for a second. Inhumans was originally supposed to be a Marvel Cinematic Universe film. But then back in like 2011, they decided to pull it back, and they reworked it. And coming in September of this year, it's going to be an ABC show. Now, the cool thing about it, though, is that one of the financial partners of the show is IMAX. So on September 1st through, I believe, the 22nd, they're going to do the first episode of the show in IMAX theaters across America.
What the fuck? That's weird.
Yeah. So parts of the show have been shot in IMAX.
Oh, that's so...
Which makes it like the first TV series ever.
That's so janky.
But it's so crazy.
No, that's... I'm wondering how many people know that term. Janky, tying back to the conversation that happened before this, it's probably, I don't know, it might end up janky is a kind of a magic term. It means really bizarre and barely fits together and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, essentially.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, that's super jank. Like, why is that? Why is that a thing? Why would you do that?
I don't know, but I'm happy for it. Maybe there will be some more money put into it.
Sure.
I don't know.
Fuck. All right. Why not?
But so that was the thing. Let's talk about TV for a second. Those were just films we talked about.
Yep.
TV, you have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is going into its 5th season this year.
Oh my God. It's made it through 5. I stopped paying attention after 2.
Well, I mean, on the flip side, you got Agent Carter, which was a badass show.
Agent Carter was actually pretty sweet.
Which only lasted for like 18 episodes.
It's all it needed to, admittedly. It was tying together all the loose ends that.
But it could have been so much more.
Yeah, Peggy Carter's also a badass
if
guy. I'm just glad they gave her a badass send off.
If they had been greenlit for a 3rd season, they were trying to push to branch out into doing sort of a radio serial podcast series.
Oh my God. Why couldn't that have just been the entire show? That would have been so cheesy and amazing. I would have loved it.
If they had gotten greenlit for a 3rd season, they would have done it.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Now that we've talked about that disappointment, coming up is Inhumans this year. It comes in September. I talked about that.
Yep.
IMAX financial partner.
We haven't talked about the Netflix stuff, which is actually some of my favorites.
Netflix, you got Daredevil, Jessica Jones,
Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Daredevil Season 2, which was a thing, and then you have the thing that I've been repeatedly watching the trailer for, which is The Defenders, which is their team up, and they've also confirmed Jessica Jones Season 2 will be a thing, and I believe they've also confirmed a Luke Cage Iron Fist team up is going to be a show.
I don't know about that. I believe it. But on top of that, they've also confirmed Punisher is coming.
Oh, right. Crap. That guy was
forgot about that.
That guy was such a good Punisher, too. Oh, this is going to be great.
Frank is going to Frank all over Netflix.
Frank is going to Frank Castle the fuck out of some people. It's going to be great.
Okay. So then also there is this one other minor note. ABC Family, which is now called Freeform.
No.
They're going to have their own Marvel Cinematic Universe related show, Cloak and Dagger.
No.
Cloak and Dagger is going to be a series that revolves around 2 people who start a relationship together, and then weird circumstances give them superpowers, and they find that their powers work together when they work together.
That sounds actually kind of adorable.
But it causes tension because of their relationship.
But sure, why not? Like that sounds like the kind of show that I would expect ABC Family to have, where it's slightly cheesy but still workable. Also, other thing that just got released yesterday, The Gifted is going to be a Marvel show.
Shit.
That is essentially what if Heroes was rewritten for the Marvel universe and we're not using the term mutant because we're legally not allowed to use the term mutant.
We are legally. That's also. I was informed today that the reason that Inhumans is a thing
because the X-Men
are
not allowed to be a thing, which admittedly we'll talk about later, but holy shit, it's actually kind of useful to have those in separate universes because the X-Men could inhabit their own universe because my God, it's a running joke about the comic books where everything bad is caused by the X-Men. Every single major crossover event comic that ends with a world-ending cataclysm, all the X-Men
if you think
on
about
a pretty consistent basis.
Based off of what I know about the X-Men from the cartoon series and the movies and reading a handful of comics, they're kind of like an advocacy group with a jet and superpowers. So I'm not surprised that they cause a lot of problems.
Well, and also every single person has their own dark, horrible past that somehow causes something that is going to cause galactic ending bullshit. I mean, they accidentally, Magneto rips the adamantium off of Wolverine, causes Charles Xavier to go fucking nuts, and Onslaught happens. Apocalypse just shows up on a regular basis and blows up everyone's nonsense. Age of Apocalypse happened. They caused the Avengers versus X-Men storyline by the Phoenix Force coming back, inhabiting Scott, and Scott straight up vaporizing Xavier. They're the cause of pretty much all the world's woes.
Damn.
Yeah. They're pretty awful. But getting back on topic,
let's talk about MCU content, let's call it that.
Yeah, sure.
That we have seen and what we have not seen.
I've seen you said before, have you seen every single one of those?
I've seen every single film. I have not watched any of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You're really not missing much.
No, the thing was, I think it was Penny Arcade at the time that dissuaded me from watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they made a comment about how it's like they made it sound like X-Files if it was boring.
My best comparison would be X-Files if it was helmed by a bunch of overly enthusiastic, charming 20-year-olds who like Hogwarts the shit out of everything. It was really frustrating in that I think the best way I can put it is it added a lot of definition to a universe, a lot of bad definition to a universe that didn't really need it. So I found out a lot about like random shield schools that just existed, and I'm like, oh, so this is just the wizarding world.
So
okay.
I also haven't watched any of Agent Carter. And there's a good reason for that. I tried to watch it, but the first season was behind ABC's network wall.
Oh, when they were when they were trying to make their own Netflix with blackjack and hookers, and Bender jokes.
And let's forget about the blackjack and the hookers.
Yeah, exactly.
You got nothing.
No, they had literally nothing.
They had like fucking Dancing with the Stars. Is that an ABC? I don't know what's on ABC.
No one cares about ABC. To be very serious, I think that's why I was so mad that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got picked up by ABC, and then I was so happy to hear that like Daredevil and the rest got picked up by Netflix.
Yes,
because to me, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could have been this very like gritty day in the life X-Files style show with like gore and like weird effects and like them fighting aliens, and it would have been awesome. And then I heard ABC got it picked up, and my entire response was, oh, so they're gonna sanitize everything that made like Nick Fury's life cool and gritty. Damn, all right, this was an awesome idea that got pretty well screwed.
They're gonna ABC-ify it.
Oh yeah, and that meant needs to be okay for families, and that's something that Marvel can do. It's just you don't do it with the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff. No. It's lame if you do that.
They did some cool shit with S.H.I.E.L.D. in the cinematic universe, which was basically take S.H.I.E.L.D. and be like, hey, Big Brother's watching you. The people in charge of it right now they have your best interest at heart, but they're watching you.
And they're also not going to ask for your opinion pretty much ever.
And then they turn it on its flip side. It's like, oh, actually, the people who are really running it are basically new Nazis.
Yeah.
And
which was cool.
They want to kill everyone that is not a sheep.
I will say that was about the only time that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got interesting is post Winter Soldier, where everything goes completely, like everything gets upended. That was about the only time Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. became cool, where it was like, oh, who's on your side, who's on the correct side, who's a Nazi, like, oh, this is kind of nuts. And then they ruined it all by having Graham's character just we'll talk afterwards. But I'm trying to think. I think the only major MCU release that I didn't see in theaters or at all might actually be The Incredible Hulk. I think I've seen every single other movie. Oh, actually, Iron Man 3 is the big blot on my record of I have not seen it. I never got around to it. So here's the thing. I have a very consistent group of people that I see movies with, especially when it comes to Marvel stuff. If they're not available, I'll probably not get around to seeing it. And it just so happened that during that time period, Iron Man 3 was one where I couldn't coordinate enough people. I just never got around to it. So it's I've pieced together what it's about. I've pulled together the plot strands that I needed to know, and I figured it out from there. Seemed fine.
Yeah, no, it's a good movie. I really like it.
I'll take a look. I mean, you're also a big advocate for the Edward Norton Hulk.
Yes, but we'll get back to that later.
I feel like we keep saying that.
We'll get back to that later. Anyway. So let's talk about what is your favorite?
Oh man! If we're talking just movies?
Yes, that's the thing. Since I have no experience with the show, but we both have a lot of experience with all the movies.
Yeah, let's talk movies.
Let's talk movies.
So I mean, I can gush. I can gush for hours on the Netflix stuff, but let's keep it down to movies.
I'll tell you what, we'll save the Netflix stuff for another episode in the future.
That actually sounds really fun.
Okay.
So for the movie stuff, I would actually say Guardians is up there, but Guardians to me is only up there because it's a massive subversion of everything that they had made before. So Guardians only works because they already proved the superhero formula could work and then just turned the whole thing on its head, and it was great. Winter Soldier is really up there for me. Winter Soldier was a phenomenal film, but I would actually say if I had to choose the original Avengers, the first one might actually be my favorite out of the pile.
The one that they were building up to, which felt at the time it felt like it was forever, but it turns out it was just like 4 years.
Yeah. I can legitimately still sit down and watch the original Avengers and enjoy the hell out of it. I don't think I've watched that movie. I know friends of mine who have watched that movie to death who can never see it ever again. I don't think I had the misfortune of doing that. I still love that.
No, I recently watched it again. Like it
Really?
Yeah. I watched it again like about a month or two ago.
Oh, okay.
And
Wow, that's
I
pretty recent.
still really like that movie.
It's surprisingly good. It's well paced. The characters are well written. Joss Whedon's writing gets a little bit samey after a while, but he's good at writing those characters very well.
It's funny when it needs to be. It's serious when it needs to be.
And it's payoff for every single one of the films that came before it. And that is something that I think we'll probably talk about later when it comes to like actual stuff. But I think that's one thing that Ultron failed so miserably at comparatively to the original Avengers. Ultron's a good enough movie.
Ultron is an okay movie.
Ultron is like a 6, 7 out of 10, whereas the original Avengers is like a solid 9 to 10.
Yeah. If you're a real cynic, probably an 8.
Yeah. But the original Avengers works super well because not only is it payoff for the movie, as in like they actually write successful character arcs for the actual film itself, they write successful character arcs that fit within the larger character arcs of every single person who has been brought up beforehand. So it's not just, oh, Tony Stark learned to work with people. It's, oh, Tony Stark learned to work with people and deal with this also other massive plot thread that's been hanging around since the original Iron Man. So it's a way of tying everything together into this nice, neat little thing. Honestly, the Marvel Cinematic Universe could have ended after Avengers Phase 1, and I think a lot of people would have been like, oh, perfect. All the plot threads are tied up.
Well, based off the list I'm looking at, a lot of people would be like, oh, wow, I'm like $100 richer now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, more than that. So much more than that.
For me personally, my favorite of all of the MCU is the first Captain America film. And I have a really good reason, which I was thinking about just now. Mm-hmm. It was the first time I've seen like a movie that was like super pro yay America that didn't seem corny, and it felt genuine, and it felt genuine in a way that I think very few people could really pull off. Like,
yeah, it didn't feel like a America thing. Is like the best way I can put it. It didn't feel like we're gonna ignore the bad and just pay attention to this. It like acknowledged the negative things about patriotism and stuff like that while still being patriotic.
Right, and it did it in such a good balance that that remains a movie that I've watched probably 10 times.
Wow.
Like, I like that movie a lot.
That's fair. I'm not arguing against that.
It's like, let's say, what if Saving Private Ryan had superheroes?
Oh my God, that's actually a great comparison. I guess it's not nearly as depressing, but I mean that comes in with the superhero part. But I mean, also there are some people who are like, oh, but the Hydra thing, like, why didn't they just? No, dude, I don't care.
Why didn't they just what?
Why didn't they just use Nazis? Like, I don't know why.
Well,
a lot of people
they did use Nazis.
Yeah, fair enough. But a lot of people I talk to, for some reason, that's like a sticking point. I don't know why.
They did use Nazis. Yeah, the Nazis show up and Red Skull vaporizes them.
They're fucking Nazis. Who cares? Like, yeah, we changed the patch. Why? Because you couldn't market it in Germany. Shut up. Like, no one gives a damn.
Once again, that is a cynic answer. The way that it's sold in the universe, I completely stand by.
Oh no, I'm by it too.
At this point, Red Skull has gone on his deep ground, and people are like, well, in Germany, we're concerned about you not being with the Fuhrer, and he's like, I'm beyond the Fuhrer, and then he vaporizes them.
Considering it is also
Hydra, it's so good.
Considering it is also Red Skull, that is exactly a Red Skull statement. I fucking love Hugo Weaving's Red Skull. Like, I am so mad that he is never going to show up again.
You say that.
Hugo Weaving apparently really didn't like making that movie.
Man.
Also, I will say the Hydra salute's stupid. Like, I'm sorry, it just is.
Come on now.
No, I'm not hating on this movie. It's a great movie. I actually really enjoyed it.
I like my argument. Hey, man. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Oh, jeez.
I will say, I do love the 40s feel of it all. I will say, it's the one movie that definitely felt, I mean, they did exceptional at that. Like, I feel like the guys who made that film studied film techniques of the time and decided, like, how do we adapt this to a very propaganda kind of ish sort of, I mean, let's be serious, it's a great movie, but there are certainly elements of it that are taken like direct from the propaganda films of the time.
With that in mind, one of my favorite moments in that film where they do some sort of where they do some good cinematography and direction is when you have Captain America on his tour.
Yes.
And
The montage.
Yeah, the montage. And then it culminates and builds up and everything's great. And then it ends with him on the front lines.
Yeah.
Just like a hard cut with him there. He's doing his thing. He's like, come on, guys. And then it cuts and it's like a bunch of people in a rainy ass, dirty mud pit field.
Yep.
And they're just depressed and upset. And it's like,
Also,
bring back the fucking girls.
also, I will say, well, actually, this kind of bleeds into our next topic. Who is your favorite character out of this whole mess?
My favorite character is probably
Out of the ones that were given in the cinematic universe, who would you say is your top?
No, that's rough, dude. That is a very difficult question to answer. I want to say Bruce Banner.
Wow, that is okay. That was unexpected. A lot of people don't say Banner.
I want to say Banner because Banner Banner is just a smart, quiet guy who has this quirk about him.
I mean, by quirk, you mean to quote Tony Stark. I love the way that you turned into a giant green rage monster.
Yeah, he said that around the same time he also shocked him.
God damn it!
Just
I love
to see what would happen.
God, I love that movie. But no, yeah, I like by quirk, you mean like it's the Jekyll and Hyde thing. I mean, he is the epitome of what if Jekyll and Hyde was a more ludicrously overpowered character.
Right.
And not in a bad way, just in a like, what if that character had
And the
more
thing is
to
he's not comfortable with it, he's not happy about it. He is actually okay discussing the fact that not that long ago he tried to kill himself.
God, that was a really dark moment. That was actually probably one of my favorite moments out of the original Avengers, where he's like, yeah, I tried to shoot myself. It went in and the other guy spat the bullet out. Like, that's holy shit, that's hardcore. Like, that was really surprising to hear in like a movie that was aimed at kids. I'm using air quotes, everybody.
Yes. He used some very strong air quotes.
That was terrifying to hear that. Like that.
Yeah. I love that character so much because in a lot of ways, in a lot of respects, it kind of feels more real to me that this guy ends up having these superpowers. And in the MCU, the idea is that they were they were trying to recreate the experiments that made Captain America. Mm-hmm. And they didn't quite figure it out, but during testing, what ends up happening is a freak accident that causes Bruce Banner, one of the scientists involved,
to get a gamma radiation overdose.
Yes, and he becomes the Incredible Hulk.
Yes, he does.
And it's really screwed up his life.
Oh, totally. which is even more frustrating because like Banner was clearly a very wonderful, like charming, normal guy who just went completely insane.
Right. And like, I really like that character. I like that character so much because he is a genuinely troubled person who has the ability to do a lot of great in the world, and he will reluctantly.
So actually, this ties a bit back. I mean, there's a connection in the comics that I think really shines through, is that he is one of the smartest people on the planet. Like, in the comics, I think he can keep up with Reed Richards, which is saying something.
It's kind of on the same level of how the Batman movies don't really show off the fact that Bruce Wayne is the world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
That is actually his superpower. Not being rich. That is not his superpower.
If this was a DC thing, we'd be having words right now. But
yes,
no, I think you're right. I think Banner is actually one of the most, especially in the recent movies. I like Ultron. He may have been the best part of Age of Ultron for me. Just seeing his growth and acceptance of the Hulk, and then kind of the rejection of everybody else, the acceptance of like the loneliness of his existence. Kind of just fucking off with the Quinjet and being like, oh, you know what, we're gonna shut this. I don't really know if I need him anymore. I'm actually kind of annoyed they didn't have that music playing when that was happening. And then seeing him during Ragnarok, like I'm actually really interested.
Oh man, I'm so.
Oh, that looks
God.
I'm so hyped. That looked awesome.
Okay, not to fall too deep into generic fan gushing podcast.
Yeah, we're trying hard here, people.
But, man, that trailer.
That was great.
Oh my God.
He's a friend from work.
You got the fucking Led Zeppelin in the background, and it's just so great. And
I'm so glad Thor is also embracing their more like epic, ridiculous roots. I feel like Dark World got away from that, and I feel like the original Thor didn't emphasize that enough.
Let's not talk about the original Thor. The original Thor was not a good.
That
movie.
trailer was hype as shit because it was like, what if we just wrote a bullshit level Norse epic, right? we put some spaceships in it. Can we just do that? All right, fuck you. This is the movie. Like, that's kind of what it's looking like, and I'm so fine with that.
I'm so stoked for that. Whereas, like, the original Thor movie was...
It was a character drama. It was a character drama
you
with,
take
like...
Thor and take all of his powers away for most of the movie.
It was...
And he's just like, he's a stranger in the strange land
The
kind
stuff
of thing.
in Asgard was the best parts about it. Him
Yeah.
being the arrogant asshole who gets banished to Earth. That was great. But anyway,
That being said, that was only the fourth movie they made.
they were trying...
Considering that they made 2 Iron Man movies.
Dark World fell on its face so hard, though.
I like Dark World.
I like Dark World because I love Christopher Eccleston. That's not a reason. Anyway, so my favorite character, actually, I mean, this seems like the obvious choice, but I'm wearing another shirt. I'm wearing a Superman shirt right now, and I love Captain America for the exact same reasons that I love Soups. I absolutely adore Captain America in this universe. He is everything that I think a superhero should be, and I don't just mean the physique. And I think this is why the original Captain America is the reason I love Cap. Because even him without powers, as a skinny little twig of a kid from Brooklyn, has the heart and the determination and the belief in himself to be a good person. And I think that's just why I love Cap. It's the same reason I love Soups. It's the same reason I love Clark Kent.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the 2 of those characters for a second, because they're
essentially the same character. Yeah.
Yeah. They both, and I'm going to use broad strokes here, and you're gonna laugh at this a little bit, but essentially both characters break down to they both believe in truth, justice, and the American way.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, I'm not gonna argue that, but that's also the reason why I love
one of them can leap tall buildings in a single bound. And has laser vision.
But it's the reason I love both characters, because they both have that same fascinating, defining philosophy to them. Only one has the powers of a god, and the other has the powers of the strongest mortal man.
Right.
And that's a really fascinating dichotomy.
And as far as cold, unfeeling Americans feel, in the cinematic universes, the only thing Superman's weak to is kryptonite, apparently. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that Captain America is weak to is Bucky.
But that counts as a kryptonite. But I don't know, I love Cap because he has the heart and the philosophy and the soul behind him. He has that, like, you could take away his powers and he'd still be trying to fight bullies in Brooklyn. And you know that's what he'd be doing.
That's one of the reasons I like that movie so much.
It's a great character establishment.
Even before he has his powers, he's constantly trying to enlist because he thinks it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And he like gets in fights, and like these people are way bigger and tougher than him. He's like, I can do this all day.
Yeah,
and he's bloodied and bruised, and
that actually, I can do this all day might be my favorite running quote in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
When they bring that back for Civil War,
him just bludgeoned and beaten, and then he's just like, "No, I can do this all day," because it draws you back to that moment where like, and it reminds you that Tony Stark might actually be the bully in this case.
Tony Stark is the bully in that case, but he's also
not wrong.
He's also trying. The movie is set up with him dealing with like 30 plus years of grief.
Oh yeah.
About the unfortunate death of his family.
I will still say Civil War in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is still more nuanced and fascinating than the actual comic book Civil War. Everybody becomes a stereotype in that one, and it becomes real bad.
Back on the Batman topic for a second.
Yeah.
Marvel was smart enough to take Batman and split him into 2 characters. You have Captain America and you have Iron Man.
In the cinematic universe, they really did that, where it's the kid fighting for the right thing. Then you have someone else handling the whole gadgeteer detective thing in the form of Stark. But anyway, sorry, back on topic. So, that's the reason I love. It's the same reason I love Soups. Is the same reason I love Cap. It's you could take away everything about him and his parentage, his heart, his upbringing, because you could take away all the powers from Clark Kent. And I would bet you he'd still be the world's greatest investigative journalist, because he knows that everything that he's doing needs to be done for the sake of the American people.
Would you say he's the hardest hitting?
That's actually pretty good. But no, I mean, it's because you could strip away powers from Superman, and I'd still say that Clark Kent would be fighting the good fight and you could take away all those powers from Steve Rogers, and Steve Rogers would be fighting the good fight.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the reason I love both of them.
In this case, Clark Kent's the real heroes in the Superman series are Ma and Pa Kent.
Oh yeah, just like how the real heroes in
they raised a hero.
Yeah, exactly. just how the real heroes in Captain America end up being like Bucky and his friends and the people that taught him to be a good person. I mean, it's what makes that origin. Admittedly, he is kind of one note, but one note isn't necessarily bad when you've got all the moving parts around him. It's fascinating. What it is it's fascinating to see how he responds to the moving parts. It's less how is Cap going to grow, it's how will Cap respond to the changes. Fair. And that's what made Winter Soldier good. He was the stoic man at the center of all this, calling all dictatorship wrong, regardless of Nazis or whoever the hell's in charge of it, which kind of takes away from it when you import actual Nazis to S.H.I.E.L.D. Which, I mean, we can talk about later, but I feel like Winter Soldier would have been better if they didn't have actual Nazis at the center of everything, because it kind of ruins the moral argument where you're like, but he's fighting Nazis. Well, fuck, of course he's the good guy then. Like, oh, he's punching Nazis. Well, damn it. Yeah, of course we're rooting for that guy. Yeah, kind of, whatever.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how cinema in general and blockbusters have changed since the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I mean, you can already see it in the fact that we just made reference to DC how many times, and their own cinematic universe, which, like, that would never have been a thing before the Marvel Cinematic Universe hit its stride.
Now, the funny thing about that is that they were actually the early entries into that kind of realm. Like, Batman was way more successful. Like, the 1989 Batman...
it was amazing.
...was way more successful than any other comic book film before that.
I was gonna say, I don't think a lot of people from the modern day realize just how big the Burton Batman movies were during their time. They were huge.
Batman and its sequel, Batman Returns, those two movies sold the idea of superhero films to people.
Combine that with the Donner Superman movies.
Oh my God.
They defined what superhero cinema was. It was bombastic, it was loud, it was exceptionally cheesy.
You could do lighthearted or you could do dark.
You could do the dark, edgy Gotham, or you could do the bright Metropolis. They actually did really well with that as far as like a dichotomy thing. I actually kind of... Now part of me really wants a Burton Donner crossover that never would have happened between Batman and Supes in like a World's Finest situation.
I mean, honestly, it's never going to happen.
Oh no, it's never going to happen. It's never going to be as nice and lighthearted as I ever wanted it to be. But I can't get what I want.
No, to tie this back to things we've talked about in the past. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna let that go.
I mean, cinema changed dramatically since. I mean, how many movies have sequels nowadays that would never have had sequels before that?
That's true. But also, I want to point out something I realized when I was doing my research on the list of cinematic universe films. Mm-hmm. So, like I said before, you have the first two films that came out within a month of each other, and then there was a solid. There was
2 years.
2 years in length, but it doesn't look as nice. 2009 had no films. Mm-hmm. Then they started up again in 2010. There's one film in 2010. Then 2 in 11, 1 in 12, 2 in 13, 2 in 14, 2 in 15, 2 in 16, and now we're in 17, which is the first year that there's 3.
Oh, wow.
And then there's 3 in 18. And then there's 3 in 19. They are ramping up production.
I'm gonna be flooded in Marvel movies for the rest of the time.
Like a good.
And I say that I'm not even that mad about it.
I'm not mad about it, but like on this list right now that I'm looking at, there are well over 10 films that are coming out in the next 3 years.
Jesus Christ, you're not wrong. But I mean, that in and of itself is a massive change. I mean, the idea that you can produce movies on this large of a scale, at this fast of a rate, at this high of budgets, and still expect to make your money back. I mean, I'm wondering how many of these have even been considered box office failures. Like, how many of these at least made their budget back? I'm wondering what that number is. It's got to be all of them. I
believe all of them, with maybe the exception of The Incredible Hulk. I haven't done the research on it.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
And then top that off with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which probably isn't the most watched show, but is doing well enough that they're doing a 5th season.
Yep.
You got Inhumans coming out
The
soon.
Netflix shows, which have been
The
remarkably
Netflix shows.
successful.
Oh my god. Daredevil.
Outside of Iron Fist, all of them have been slam dunk hits.
Like, I have liked every single Netflix series I have watched.
I would agree.
And I look forward to seeing what they do with Punisher.
I am so excited for the Defenders.
We already know that they can handle Frank in they do a great job with him. And what's it going to be like when he has his own series? My God.
I'm like, but listen to us talking about this. The thing is, they're ramping up production, but we're excited for all of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Which is insane to think about. I mean, the one frustration with this changing cinema is, and I will say this, one-shots are not a thing anymore. The idea of making a one-shot science fiction movie is not something that Hollywood, I think, will ever consider ever again.
I feel like the idea of having a movie that was less than a sci-fi fantasy film that was less than a trilogy died off somewhere around 2001.
Here's the thing though, we were talking about this actually ties back to Dogma hilariously. You know when we were talking about Kevin Smith at the end and we were like, yeah, he's just kind of a guy who'd be like, let's make a movie and let's use the funds from that movie to make another movie.
Right.
You don't get that anymore.
No.
In modern production in studios, you are essentially, you either sell us a concept that can make 5 films or get the fuck out of the office.
I'd imagine that sitting down and talking to executives is sort of like if they have an idea that you really like, or if you have an idea they really like, they sit down like, I'm really excited about this. So what's your 5-year plan?
I also imagine like Hellfire being in the background and also that voice being a lot more
demonic
sounding.
I really like this idea. What's your 5-year plan?
I imagine that is like every Disney exec.
Oh, sorry.
But I mean, Star Wars ran into this problem. Star Wars wasn't even fucking untouched by this like new plague of cinema.
They already started getting their right the moment that
they got the rights
before the ink was dry on the contract.
Sidequels.
They already had ideas for like 5 or 10 different films.
Not even that, but I mean, we talked about this before. TV series, Rebels, episodes 7, 8, 9, sidequels for Rogue One, for Han Solo, for Lando, for Boba Fett. All of this info came like a fucking geyser the second they got those rights. And I am willing to bet money that this is going to be every studio until Marvel runs out of gas. Mm-hmm. This is going to be every studio potentially for the next 10 years of our lifetimes until Marvel finally hits a movie that doesn't make its money back.
Yeah.
The second that happens, every single exec is going to run scared from this model. If Marvel keeps making its money back, this is going to keep being Hollywood's new thing.
I was thinking about this when I was looking at this and realizing that for the next 3 years, we have at least 3 Marvel movies coming out annually. Mm-hmm. That tells me that they're like, wow, people aren't sick of this yet. All right, we're going to make more. We're going to ramp it up. We're going to see how much we can do from this machine. Like before people get fucking sick of it.
It's the goose that laid the golden egg. We are gonna push this thing until it's dry because we have no idea how long this is gonna keep going.
I'm just thinking about Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka now. The goose that laid the egg, and that person's like, but it's like the middle of September or whatever, and he's like, he grabs their mouth, he's like, they don't know that.
Yeah, exactly. That is the best comparison. I love that. But no, seriously, like Hollywood doesn't do, and I mean this is true in any industry. This is true in video games. This is true in probably the pharmaceutical industry. The second you find one cash cow model, this is your and every person in the industry's model until this thing runs dry.
Well, Disney is a conglomerate that owns cash cows. They own Pixar. They own Lucasfilm. They own Disney. They own Disney. Fuck.
They do own Disney.
They do own Disney.
They own the remains of Walt Disney. As a matter of fact,
they own the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And this is what Disney. And here's the thing. Here's potentially what worries me. Because don't get me wrong, I love this shit. Mm-hmm. I eat this shit up. This is some of my favorite stuff being made today. This is some of my favorite fiction. As a guy who loves comic books and loves the ridiculousness of it all, it is amazing to see everybody into the things that I love. I am very worried that this is going to be the rest of time. And I am very worried that this is going to never stop. Not because I'm worried about the Marvel Cinematic Universe being bad, because I don't think they're going to fuck it up. Disney is made up of too many crazy people who are way too paranoid about failures to ever let this fail.
Now, can we talk about the really screwed up thing?
What?
Is that although I'm sure that these movies have introduced some people to actually buying comic books,
Comic book sales are terrible.
comic book sales are not good still.
That's an entirely different issue, though, because I would say, as someone who pays attention to the cinematic universe more than the comic books, the thing that puts me back on comics is the price and the consistency of characters. And that's a whole different rant.
We'll have that conversation another day.
But my frustration, and I think I'll make this our final point on this topic, is that my worry is less that the cinematic universe is going to fail, and more that because it makes money, no one is going to stop using this model. That is my worry, is that we are never going to see a Blade Runner. We are never, well, you know what I mean.
Well.
We're never going to see what I thought was, who the fuck greenlighted that sequel? Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stab someone.
Why?
Why sequelize it? It was such a perfect self-contained story. It's a beautiful film.
Welcome to modern Hollywood. We don't have original
That's
ideas.
so infuriating, though. And I think that's what agonizes me even more, is that this is the model now. Resurrect what's dead, never let it go, and never let anything be a one-shot.
Why would you invent your own franchises or your
when
own
you
characters?
can reap the graves of the old?
You could either reap the graves of the old, or you could just buy someone else's creativity.
And it's so infuriating to me, because this model is amazing for the cinematic universe.
Or you can make a movie about World War II.
Exactly. Because I think this is amazing for the cinematic universe, where it's aided Marvel and Marvel essentially created its own version of cinema that works for Marvel.
Yeah.
That is what this is. I mean, we can't do comic book serialization in film. Fuck you, we own our own studio, let's do it. And then they did it, and it made the most money ever. My frustration is that model doesn't work for everything. You can't do a Blade Runner 2 without it fucking up. I swear to God, I am going to be right. This movie's going to be terrible. You can't do what if we made 7 billion Alien sequels. You can't do this kind of...
Find out what that is.
You can't do this kind of stuff without the market becoming saturated and everybody hating it. You can't abuse this model until everybody despises you, because the only one who's going to do it right is Marvel, because they're the guys who did it first, and they're the people who understand it best. DC's running into this problem right now, where they're beginning to realize, oh fuck, we've gone too far. Our system isn't working. Their writers are bad. Their atmosphere is bad, and they don't have the editors that Marvel does. And I mentioned this, Justice League is going through reshoots.
Oh my God.
Which
I'm not
we know what
surprised.
happened. You're not surprised, but we know what happened last time.
Okay, here is what DC needs to do, in my opinion.
Sure.
I'm going to do this, and then we're going to...
We
got a few other things we're going to talk about, but we're going to save those for another day.
Oh, totally. And we can make we can make an entire secondary series out of this.
Oh God, for me it'd be like a fifth and dairy.
I'd be so fine with that, though.
Okay, so DC needs to forget about what Marvel's doing.
Yep.
Go do their own thing.
Yep.
And don't make movies that are going to make or break you.
No.
Make smaller budget shit. Make stuff that is interesting, but is not going to ultimately destroy Warner Brothers.
We know you have Superman. We know you have Batman.
Hey.
But you know what Marvel didn't start with? They didn't start with the recognizable guys. They didn't start with Captain America.
They started with Iron Man.
They started with Iron Man. They made the Hulk. They made Thor.
Yeah.
And you want to know why? Because they didn't have the X-Men and Spider-Man. Marvel's greatest asset was losing their A tier.
Yeah.
They lost the Fantastic Four,
when they were
too.
in dire straits and they sold off the movie rights for
It
those
was
characters,
a godsend.
they were forced to be creative. This is a story as old as time. Give people limits and they will be creative. DC's problem is they keep fucking doing Superman and Batman over and over. We know who those characters are. Do someone no one knows about.
I want a Swamp Thing movie.
Do a Swamp Thing. Fucking do Nightwing. Do a Nightwing movie.
Because then you could actually bring in the stuff about him being Batman without actually mentioning Batman. It's like artistry or some
Dick
bullshit.
Grayson in Bloodhaven fighting Blockbuster.
That'd
Jesus
be
Christ.
so good. You could even have your Batman cameo in there. You
He
could
had
even
a
have him
say-
at the end being like, Dick, I need you back in Gotham. And he can be like, oh, wait a minute. And then you can actually do Justice League.
Nightwing has a Cypher character that is a guy who was a corrupt detective working for Bloodhaven PD. And then Blockbuster gets tired of him, Blockbuster is essentially like Kingpin, except on steroids.
That's awesome.
And he takes this guy and he snaps his neck, and his head's facing backwards. And he survives.
Fucking what?
He fucking survives that, but he's the backwards man now.
Oh my God,
And
that's
he's
so dumb and I love
He is
it.
twisted.
Oh my, it's like Two-Face.
It's
I love
so
it.
fantastic. This guy's hiding in the background, like pulling strings, and he's this guy with reverse viewing sunglasses so he can see in front of him still. And he's just like manipulating things in the background. And it's like, this would be way fucking cooler than any shit you're doing with like fucking Harley Quinn and Suicide Squad or Batman v Superman.
Maybe let's not feed into the Hot Topic crowd. Like maybe let's realize that that's not what the average human being is and not fuck this up.
With that in mind,
hell, do a Lantern movie that isn't terrible. Isn't terrible. Don't fuck it. No, you know what? I take my words back. Don't do a Lantern movie.
do a Guy Gardner film.
Do a Martian Manhunter movie.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Fucking John Johns, man.
It'd be amazing. He's an amazing character that does not get enough credit. What DC needs to do, and I think this ties back to like what blockbusters have been fucking up, is you don't follow the model to the T. Marvel only got here because they lost their resources and needed to scramble, and they used creativity and innovativeness to come up with a system that worked for them. What they need to do is, what this story is a let's not mimic Marvel. It's the let's actually see what works for us. Let's analyze the system instead of blindly mimicking what the other guys do. But no one's going to learn this lesson. It's Hollywood. No one learns a damn thing.
If you look at it through a mirror, DC is kind of doing a bizarro mirror world version of what Marvel's doing. Because Marvel built up to Civil War. Mm-hmm. They started with Batman v Superman. And now they're doing a JLA movie to follow that up. And then through those, they're going to do The Flash and Aquaman and all that. They're doing all of those after the Justice League movie, with the exception of Wonder Woman. What are you doing, DC? What are you doing?
The problem is that DC had the Trinity, and they said, what if we just made movies about the Trinity? And then it fucked up, and here we are. Also, other thing, because I do want to give them some level of credit, don't hire Zack Snyder to
Please
run
stop
anything.
hiring Zack Snyder.
This is a public service announcement. If you have the chance to hire Zack Snyder for anything that isn't a music video, don't. Just don't. Just really take a hard look at your money and say to yourself, I really don't want to light this on fire today.
So that being said, he did a good job with Watchmen. And we'll get back to that in the future.
Exactly. I guess here's the thing. So I am, as our audience knows, because our audience is essentially just people who know us, because let's be serious here. As our audience well knows, I am a massive Wikipedia nerd. I am a massive comic book nerd, and I know everything about everything. I am, to a certain extent, a walking encyclopedia of random knowledge that you never needed to know.
Same here.
I am essentially your subconscious. It's like, why do we know that? I don't know.
If you ever need to know a random fact about something that you never knew you needed to know a random fact about,
talk to one of us, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll help you out.
That's why we run a podcast. That's kind of how this started. But what do we want to see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? What crazy bullshit do we want to see show up that would never actually show up?
All right, I told Andrew I would let him just go to town, and I'm going to let him because the battery is going to die on this recorder at some point. Go for it, my friend.
I want Marvel Galactic bullshit. I want the Silver Surfer. I want the Skrulls. I want the Apocalypse Wars. I want Galactus being not necessarily a dude in a big dumb helmet, but like just I want Galactus. I want everything that makes the Marvel Galaxy stuff completely insane. We've seen some tastes of it in Guardians of the Galaxy, but we haven't gone full psychedelic, what the fuck is going on levels of bullshit. I want all of that in cinema form. And the problem is that Fantastic Four are directly connected to it, and I don't know if Marvel has the rights to it, but I know after that terrible, terrible film. They might actually have the rights to it. I want that in everything. I just want like 7 of those movies. I want my own Marvel Galactic line that I can just watch and not pay attention to anything else. That'd be amazing. I want Doctor Doom. I want him to show up as a main villain. I want that to actually be the stinger at the end of whatever Infinity Wars Part 2 is them having defeated Thanos. Everybody's dead. Hard cut back to planet Earth in Latveria with Doom relaxing on a throne and the Doombot coming up to him just being like, Master, all the heroes have been defeated. Good! Then the Earth is ours. I want that to be a thing. Give that to me, Marvel. Give me Doctor Doom lounging on a throne, just murdering people. I want that.
Lord knows that Fox has no idea how to do Fantastic Four.
God, no. They don't activate the cheesy ridiculousness of it all. The entire series starts with them going to space and getting hit with cosmic rays. It's what if like a 50s Forbidden Planet, not Forbidden Planet. It's what if a 50s cheesy, it's what if Flash Gordon was a comic book, essentially. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy hand-wavy bullshit and it's dumb and it's amazing.
Honestly, if they did it shot like a Flash Gordon serial, I'd probably eat that shit up.
Oh, you would. I would too. Are you kidding me? I want the Marvel Galactic stuff because that stuff is insane and amazing. I actually kind of never want the X-Men back. I'm kind of okay with them being, which is funny because segregation jokes about mutants and humans.
I don't think most people caught that though.
I know, but I said it. Now they caught it. No, I'm actually kind of fine with never getting the X-Men back. I like them being their own thing and fucking up their own universe. I don't mean fucking up as in bad movies. I mean just decimating everything.
They're just enjoying their own universe where everything is constantly being destroyed and apocalyptical.
I mean, we had I was gonna say we had Apocalypse already. God, I'm trying to think. I mean, I really want Doom back. He's one of my favorite goddamn things ever. I want him, and I want Dormammu. I want Dormammu in full flaming skeleton-headed, really dumb voiced glory. Shuma Gorath would be glorious. Get some Eldritch horror in there. For reference, one of my favorite things ever. Shuma Gorath is actually, and this is a weird train of thought, and this is probably going to be our final thing before your microphone gives out. Shuma Gorath is a character written by H.P. Lovecraft to live in Robert E. Howard's universe of Conan the Barbarian. However, here's where it gets amazing. Marvel bought the rights to Conan the Barbarian comics back during like the 60s, and they made Conan the Barbarian stuff, which means the Hyborian Age is actually canon to the Marvel universe. No, I'm not kidding. Conan the Barbarian is technically canon to Marvel because they mention it, and they also mention an eldritch monstrosity which appears in the Hyborian Age, and also becomes a character later on in the Doctor Strange stuff, which is an eldritch horror with one eye and a fuckload of tentacles by the name of Shuma Gorath, and it is the Lord of Chaos of its own dimension called the Chaos Dimension that exists beyond space and time. And it is essentially Cthulhu, the Doctor Strange enemy. And it is amazing and psychotic and just the most gloriously nuts thing in Marvel. And I really want to witness that. Because he makes fun of Thanos for being a whiny little bastard on a pretty regular basis. He has completely slapped Dormammu out of his own dimension, I want to say 3 times. He is the deadliest thing in the Marvel universe and is also a giant tentacled monster that Deadpool consistently makes jokes about making calamari out of. Like, it's so gloriously dumb that I adore it. I think that's kind of the end of it. I mean, I could go on for a little bit longer, but I want Galactic, I want Doom, I want all the stuff that they can't touch right now except for the X-Men. Keep the X-Men away.
I'll tell you what. We'll table this for now.
Yeah.
And we'll do another one of these probably around July when Spider-Man comes out.
I'm actually really interested to see how Spider-Man turns out. He's consistently been one of the most, outside of Superman, I would say he's the most important character when it comes to superheroes in my life. And I'm really interested to see what they do with him.
I'll tell you what, in July, we'll do an episode that is just about the Spider-Man cinematic universe.
Oh my God, yeah, just let's sit down and watch. It'd be like Harry Potter all over again. Let's sit down and watch 7 movies, everybody.
You know what movie I've never seen?
What?
Spider-Man 3.
You're not missing much.
I've seen that dancing scene over and over again.
then you've seen the movie. I mean, there's nothing else of worth there. There's like that and 2 really cool shots of Venom. Boom, I saved you 2 hours.
Isn't Sandman in it too?
No one cares. No one goddamn cares. Seriously, go back and watch the 90s cartoon version of it,
Oh my
of the
God.
Venom plotline, and
No,
you're getting
the
more stuff.
90s Spider-Man was best Spider-Man.
90s Spider-Man was phenomenal. 90s X-Men was less so. I would say, you know what? We'll probably do an entire episode on this, but
Let's table it for now.
yeah.
But so we're gonna end on this.
Yes.
Andrew, you know what movie I really like, but you've never seen before?
What movie is that?
The Incredible Hulk.
Let's watch it.
We're gonna watch The Incredible Hulk next time, folks. You have a great day.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye.